And the legislation that he recommended, and that a girl named Cheryl Wallace in his office was drafting, a bill that would require lyrics to be placed on the back of an album. I called his office. I explained to her, since she was writing the bill, that there is no statutory rate for the privilege of publishing lyrics on the back of an album. There's no industry-established fee, because you can't demand that somebody who wrote words gives up his rights to exploitation and they go on the back of the album. And so I had researched it because I recommended that at the Senate hearing. I said, if you had to choose between a third party deciding what does it contain and rating it, or somebody reading the lyrics, obviously it would be better for the person to read the lyrics and make up their own mind. I recommended it at that time, but I also stated that whoever has written those lyrics needs to be paid for it. They're not always owned by the record company or by the person who's singing the record. Those are owned by third and fourth parties.
Thank you very much. I just have to interrupt for 1 second. We'll be right back after the break, and we'll discuss more about porn lyrics. Stay with us. The issue of porn rock lyrics. Jim, what does that kind of music do to kids, in your opinion?
Well, I think it is very dangerous. Like Frank was saying, there's no scientific data about, what really happens. But on our show, we play music videos by artists who are Christians, so we have, the opposite side. We get a lot of letters from people who say, hey, my life has really been affected by the negative aspects of these lyrics, and now my life has been changed because of what these Christian artists are saying. A girl wrote to me saying, hey, I saw a video on your show that changed my life. She was being pressured into having sex with her boyfriend, and she changed her mind because of a video we played. Music is like a knife. It can be used by a murderer, Richard Ramirez, to kill people, or it can be used by a surgeon to heal people. And we're talking about some of these really explicit lyrics. That's kind of the minority. I think the real danger is in the vast majority of lyrics that are just slightly off-center. Things like Madonna saying, get into the groove, you gotta prove your love to me. Things like that don't sound really obscene, but they have even a greater negative impact because they're subtle.
But, is there any real chance in today's world that we're going to change the music that's played, or the music, in a sense, that's bought by the young people?
No, I'm an optimist, but I think our society is that way, and the artists are reflecting that, and they're trying to be more shocking, and therefore they push back the limits and make it the standard. I think the responsibility is with the record companies to say, hey, shape up here.
But then, Frank, wouldn't you have control by the record companies of the artists if indeed you took that policy?
First of all, you have control of the record companies by the artists now. Okay. The control is called the dollar. The artist doesn't get signed unless the record company thinks they can make money. The record company is a bank. They advance the money to make the album. If there's a sufficient amount of pressure on the record company to behave in a certain way, you're going to have conflicts in the executive suite where a guy will decide, I know if I sign this group and we let them do what they normally do, that we're going to sell a certain amount of records, or if I sign, or if I don't sign that kind of a group and sign only Christian rock, which will appease only these Christians who are very upset about this thing, that we're probably going to sell plenty of records of a Christian rock nature to a Christian rock audience, and everything should be that way, you're going to have those kind of mental conflicts in the executive suite.
So the judgment call cannot be made, in other words, by record companies, record producers, or artists. In other words, you're saying that judgment call is made by the dollar.
That is the ultimate call. If they think they can make more money by recording only Christian rock, which is not well defined yet as an art form or even acceptable to some people from the Christian perspective, if you know about Freedom Village in Lakemont, New York, a detox center where parents send children to be cured of rock addiction, run by Pastor Fletcher A. Brothers. Yes, I've received their information, a fascinating place. He sent me a list of about this long of all of the offending artists. He calls it all murder music. Oh. And, boldface capital letters. Some of the people on his list include Stevie Wonder. And the reason he's on there is because he has something about astrology in his album. John Denver is on there because he went through Est. Boy George is on there because not only does he want to be neither male nor female, but it claims that his albums promote Hinduism. So you have if you're going to just go purely Christian here, you're going to have to deal with the Christian extremes too. So a record company executive is going to say, if I must appease to the Christian contingent who want no sex and only certain points of view, which of these strange points of view do I deal with? How can he make that call? Ultimately, he's going to go, I'm selling millions of records right now with Prince just the way he is. I'm leaving it. You don't think they're going to make Prince change Darling Nikki in the next record?
No, I don't think they're going to make Prince change anything in the next record. That's really not the issue. I suppose the issue is this type of music harmful to kids? If so, who has control over the music? And is it the parental responsibility to make sure that the kids do or do not listen? That's really how I see it.
Well, you're describing a medical situation. First of all, there's no documentation that proves that hearing a word turns you into a social liability. You may have feelings about it. You may consider it a matter of taste. But unless there is scientific evidence that says if a person hears a song about masturbation, it's all over. When somebody proves that, then you've got a reason to cry, alarm, alarm. We must change the industry to accommodate this point of view. But until that happens, I think it is people with concerns, which are valid, but not necessarily huge enough that we have to occupy the media and the government with the matter of Prince's lyrics because he wants to sing about somebody for the magazine.
Norma? With that sentence, that's a great lead-in.
That's a little, yeah.
Okay.
I think my point of view comes from the point of view of all kids. And it's not only the kids who have good rapport with their parents who will talk about these things, but it's a youngster who will listen to this kind of thing and think that that's the way of the world.
But I think Frank's point of view
yeah.
is that maybe that hasn't been proven, that listening to that music does not make them think this is the point of view.
Well, I don't think you can prove why somebody goes off the deep end and does some of these awful things that are said in the violent things, the rape, the incest. I mean, if you're going to sing about those things, somebody's going to pick that up as being a way of life.
Well, let me ask you one simple question. A lot has been made about this Night Stalker case, and they said, and PMRC has been very delighted to assist in the public conception that if you hear an AC/DC record album, there's always a possibility that you may be the next Richard Ramirez. I would like to pose this question. Take any number of mass murderers in the United States and ask them what their favorite form of music is. And I bet you're going to find one of them likes Wayne Newton, and another one happens to like some cowboy entertainer.
Well,
and what are you going to do? Pin it on, if a guy commits a crime, you're going to blame him for the music he listens to, the church he goes to, because that may have an even larger impact on what the guy is.
I think you can pick every form of media that you hear, and it's going to fit somebody somewhere.
Okay, but the people who do the horrible things are not doing it just because of music.
Not just because, no, but it's an added factor to an already sick world. And it just doesn't seem that...
But which came first, the sick world or the music that writes about that
which came
world?
first, the chicken or the egg? The thing is that media itself, I think, has a very definite impact upon people.
Sure, I agree with that because if you're on the radio or on TV or in films, what you say automatically carries a more authoritative weight just because you're on TV.
Do you see an age, for instance, Jim, where it would be acceptable, in your opinion, for kids to start listening to music that is like I described?
Oh, I don't think that kind of music is acceptable to anyone. I don't...
But I mean, isn't there an age of reason that kids come to where they get to choose?
Oh, sure, but...
But you hope they don't choose that.
But I mean, at what age
yeah.
what age would you peg it?
Well, I couldn't say, because every person is different. I mean,
Frank, do you see that?
Well, I
as an
see
issue?
from his point of view that there is no acceptable age to hear any of that kind of stuff. And if that view pervades, you will have censorship. I want to remind the people who are watching who know anything about the PTA that the PTA subscribes to a code which is First Amendment up and down the line. It has the Free Library Act and all the rest of that stuff. You don't want to take books out of the library because of content. I saw the thing. And the same thing should apply to records, because if you look at what's happening in public libraries, I talked to the Librarians Association maybe 8 years ago, and the trend then was 60% of the new purchases each year for the library were phonograph records. So this Library Bill of Rights should apply to
We have no
phonograph
quarrel
records,
at all, PTA-wise, with what is happening right now.